Hey guys, today we're going to be using a website called Metaverse Studio to create simple stories. So this platform is meant for creating augmented reality programs, but we're not going to use that today. Okay, so before I show you how to use Metaverse Studio, I want to show you what the finished product will look like.
Little Red Riding Hood lived in a wood with her mother. One day, Little Red Riding Hood went to visit her granny. She had a nice cake in her basket. On her way, Little Red Riding Hood met a wolf. "Hello," said the wolf. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to see my grandmother. She lives in a house behind those trees." The wolf ran to Granny's house and ate Granny up. He got into Granny's bed. A little later, Little Red Riding Hood reached the house. She looked at the wolf. "Granny, what big ears you have. All the better to hear you with," said the wolf. "Granny, what big eyes you have. All the better to see you with," said the wolf. "Granny, what a big nose you have. All the better to smell you with," said the wolf. "Granny, what big teeth you have. All the better to eat you with," shouted the wolf. A woodcutter was in the wood. He heard a loud scream and ran to the house. The woodcutter hit the wolf over the head. The wolf opened his mouth wide and shouted, and Granny jumped out. The wolf ran away, and Little Red Riding Hood never saw the wolf again.
So as you can see, we could add the text, characters, background, branches to take the story in different directions, and our voice to read the story. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is come to this website, studio.gometa.io/landing. I think it's easier to just Google Metaverse Studio and then click on the first link. Okay, so now that we're here, go ahead and click on Get Started. You need your email address, a username, a password, and say that you are a student. So again, I have my email, my username, my password, and I am a student. Create account. Okay, you might see this screen. The username you selected is not available. If that happens, pick a different username. Okay, and after that, you'll be in. This is the homepage for Metaverse users. So what we're going to do to begin is click Create Experience. Okay, once it loads after you hit Create Experience, this is the workspace of Metaverse Studio. So what we're going to do, okay, this is the workspace of Metaverse Studio when it's finished loading. Okay, so I have my first box here. This is going to be my title screen. So if I click on it, I see all the menus for this box. So we have AR or background. This means augmented reality. The background is what your camera will view. Or background, we pick the image that we want. So for our stories, we're going to use background for every slide. So I click on background, and now I can change the background of the box. So for my example, I'm going to use Little Red Riding Hood again. So in the top box, that's where I can enter my text. I'll write Little Red Riding Hood. This circle is where you can place a character. So the character menu pops up, and there are all different pictures that you can choose from. Okay, so I'm looking for Little Red Riding Hood. And it's not going to have everything that you search, but there is something for Little Red Riding Hood that I'm going to use. Okay, so my character has loaded. Now I want to change the background of this image. So for Little Red Riding Hood, I think usually of the forest. Let's see what they have. Okay, so finally the options load, and here's the one picture of a forest that Metaverse Studio provides for us. So I will click it, and then we'll see that the slide will change to have that background. Okay, so now that our background is loaded, I want to click down here to add a button to take this slide to the next slide. And now once I've done that, this menu opens up. This is the menu for the button. So I can choose what I want the button to say. Start here, press here, or anything you want. If you leave it blank, you'll have this little arrow that shows click here for the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to make the button say press here to begin. Done. Next, to take it to the next slide, I have to first add a new slide. So there are all different kinds of options that you can use with this website, but primarily we're going to stick with the character scene, the first option. This lets us add a character, change the background, and add text. So now that I have a new slide, you'll see that every time you make a new slide, it starts you in the augmented reality mode. We want background mode so that we'll have the same picture all the time, that the picture will not move. So again, let's change this background to the forest. Okay, here we'll use the forest, and I'll begin the story. Okay, so with the story in front of me, I'm going to type Little Red Riding Hood lived in the wood with her mother. Maybe you'll type better than that. Okay, but it's important to remember that you want to chunk your story up and take the part from the story to choose your character and your background. So for this, it's the beginning of the story. It's about Little Red Riding Hood. She's still in the wood. It's still her. I'm just going to leave her as the character and this as the background. Okay, so before we move on, though, this button here is the options for this link is the options for this button. So again, press here to begin. Transition control. Transition to scene means press this button to take us from one scene to the next. So here, scene 1, scene 2. I'm going to use this button to take us to scene 2. Okay, so now we're going to add this button, and since the story is only moving in one direction, I'm not going to change this arrow. I'm just going to leave it so that I know press this button for the next slide. So then, let's add that next slide. Again, shows up in AR mode. Make sure to switch it to background. And now, we can tell this button transition to scene 3 now. Okay, so again, let's change the background. Going to stick with the forest and add my text. One day, Little Red Riding Hood went to visit her granny. Going to add spaces so that there's space in the reading of the stories, that you know how the story would be read. Next sentence, she had a nice cake in her basket. So, instead of using Little Red Riding Hood this time, I'm going to switch the character. Click on this character. This pencil is edit. The trash can is delete. If I want the character gone, I'll press delete. But I want to just change her. So, I click on the pencil. And let's see what kind of baskets they have for us. Basket. Okay, so these are the baskets that I have available from Metaverse Studio. I don't really like any of them though, so I'm going to go to add a character. And this will let me pick the picture that I want to use. So, I already have some pictures downloaded in a special folder so I know where to find them. And picnic basket. Let's use this because it's a basket with cakes, so it's more applicable to the story. I could take it from Google Images and now put it in my story. Save, and it will be there. Okay, so the basket is finally loaded. So you'll see that when I'm not clicked inside the text box, that all the sentences come together as if they're next to each other. But when I click inside, you'll see that the spacing is still there. So you'll know that on your phone, when we look at the finished product, the spacing will still be there. Okay, so to finish up with this, let's add a button, take us to the next slide. Add new. Another slide. Okay, and this time, let's change the forest. It's a nice picture, but I don't want to see it on every slide. So, change frame. forest, similar to what we did. Now we're going to add a picture from the computer. So I go to upload an image. I'm still in the folder Metaverse Backgrounds where I've saved all the pictures that I want to use. And let's use this forest background. Okay, so now this will be the background for this slide. I go down to save, if my face wasn't in the way. And it will save, and then it will be there. Okay, so now that we have this other background, let's add the text for this slide. On her way, Little Red Riding Hood met a wolf. Okay, so definitely with this slide, I want to have a picture of Red Riding Hood and the wolf. So I'm going to click here, click the pencil to edit this picture, this character they call it, and again, add a character because I have a specific picture that I want that I've taken from Google. So, upload image, I have Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf. And I will save it, and then it will upload it to the slide. Okay, so now I have my character picture, my text, and I have to remember to link scene 3 to scene 4. It doesn't matter when you link the scene once the new one is created, as long as you remember to do it. Or when you press this button in the app, it won't go anywhere and your story will end. You won't be able to take it anywhere. You'll have to close out. Okay, so as long as we remember to connect them, everything will be good. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you guys before I jump ahead to closer to a finished product is adding sound to each slide. So you click on the border, not on the character and not on the text, somewhere in like the negative area of the slide. And you're going to click on add sound. And like the pictures, like the characters and like the background, you come to add a sound to upload your own sound. Okay, so I'm going to click on this microphone. The browser, the program you're using to use the internet, might ask you to give it permission to use the microphone. Say allow, and then you can record your voice. So I'm going to record 3, 2, 1. Allow my microphone to work. Please use my microphone with this program. And it'll start. Little Red Riding Hood lived in a wood with her mother. And you're probably going to record it better than that, not rushed. And you can click play, which I don't think you'll be able to hear from this video, but it'll play back to you what you recorded, and then you give that file a name, whatever. Little Red Riding Hood, slide 1, and save, and then it will upload itself to that slide. Okay, so those were the basic steps to make a story. Add a new slide, add a character, add the text, change the background. You can upload your own background, you can upload your own character. Okay, so eventually, as your story continues and gets bigger, you might run out of room in the workspace. This is the story at the end, so you'll see zoom in, zoom out. Zoom in, zoom out. Okay. So, let's zoom out to get a better look at what's going on in the story. So if you follow the lines at the end of every transition button, every button that changes the slide, we'll see that the story goes like this, comes to here, and then from this slide, I made 4 different options with 4 different slides that these buttons go to. Okay, so to do that, let's zoom back in. Every time you make a button, another blank box appears. If you click the blank box, it'll give you the option for another button. So here, I clicked the blank box 3 times to have 4 buttons. In the story Little Red Riding Hood, Red says, "Granny, what big eyes you have. What big ears you have. What a big nose you have." So instead of having that go in a straight pattern, there are 4 different choices to take you to 4 different slides. Okay, and then each slide, the button of each additional slide lets you come back to the choice slide. So that if you clicked what big eyes you have, you come to the eye slide. If you click what big ears you have, you come to the ear slide. This one's the ear slide. Come to the ear slide. and this way you can get back every time. To move on, the last one in the story is what big teeth you have. So, in that slide, I added the button to continue, or the button to go back, so that if you clicked this first, you can go back. But this is where we continue from. So, because these slides are branching from this one, I gave them specific names so that I know where I'm transitioning to. So if it's small, this one says ears, eyes, nose, teeth. And from the button, what big eyes you have, if you click on the button for the menu, transition to scene, eyes. When I click what big eyes you have, take me to the slide, all the better to see you with. When I click on what big ears you have, I go to this slide. Transition to ears. From big nose, transition to nose. From teeth, transition to teeth. And then from here to the continuation of the story. Okay, so finally, the last thing that we're going to do is once you reach the end of the story, you can, either on the last slide, change this from transition to scene to end experience, and then this last button will close the program, or you can do like I did and add an end screen. So from this end screen, the button down here, the red button, ends the experience, closes the program. And that's the last thing you want to have for the story. Okay, so then once you finish that, you come up here to publish. Publish, you give it a name, you publish, and it will finish. So now, to use the story, we get a QR code. And if you download the app, Metaverse, you can open up the story on your phone and see that it works, and see that all the buttons take you to all the places you told them to. Okay, guys, so that's it. That's Metaverse Studios. So remember, you want to create new. In the top right corner, use a character slide, add your text, add your character, change the background. Don't forget you want to be in background mode, not AR. Alright, so now you're all set to create your own story. Good luck.